On this day in 1904, Chris Watson was elected as Prime Minister in what was the first Labour government in the world to take power. Which country do you think it was? Why yeah, of course, it was Australia! This video will take a quick look at how it all came about. So, in the late 1800s, Australia was in a deep economic depression. The world's economy was stagnating, and this caused financiers to pull out of Australia, leaving many people in debt. The Commercial Bank of Australia closed down, and then a whole bunch of other banks shut too, which was ruinous for a lot of people. Less money meant fewer jobs, and fewer jobs left a lot of people in a lot of trouble. The trade unions were pretty strong though, because prior to the Depression, Australia had been in an economic boom, exporting wool to the world like winter sweaters would never go out of fashion. This meant that workers could organise efficiently to try and save their livelihoods with a good old-fashioned strike. The Maritime Strike of 1890 and the Shearers' Strike of 1891 were two of the largest and most violent strikes the country had ever seen. And unfortunately, there were enough desperate people willing to work that the strikes didn't have the desired effect. People realised that their employers, the government and the police had no interest in their well-being, and the only way that they were going to be able to make any kind of meaningful change was from within. They needed to create a political party. So, who was Chris Watson? Well, he was either born in Chile or international waters because his dad worked in shipping. Given that this was the case, he technically wasn't allowed to be in government, let alone Prime Minister, I believe. And I mean, that's probably why he was so shady about his birthplace. His dad died and he ended up taking his stepdad's surname when the family settled in New Zealand. He was sent out to work on the railroads at the age of 10 because it was the olden times. When he was 13, he wound up getting an apprenticeship working for the Oamaru Mail newspaper, and he almost immediately joined the trade union. By the time he was 18, he decided to move to Sydney, as a lot of people do. He worked for the Daily Telegraph, the Sydney Morning Herald and the Australian Star. He also climbed the ranks in his trade union, becoming involved in politics and helping to get Labour candidates elected in the 1891 election. Now, infighting didn't especially give the Labour Party the best luck during their initial foray into power, but Chris Watson was a very good diplomat, and at the age of 24 he was elected Vice President of the Trades and Labour Council. And in this time he was involved in establishing an 8-hour workday. Good stuff! The 1903 election was the first one that women were also allowed to vote in. Watson and his Labour Party won a minority government, and he took post on this day in 1904. At the age of 37, he remains Australia's youngest Prime Minister. But being in a minority government meant that in practice, they could actually get very little done. Just under 4 months later, he had to resign after losing a confidence motion. He had passed no legislation whilst he was in office. Anti-socialist George Reid replaced him, and the glory days were over. Chris did stay in politics for a while, but he retired at the age of 42, and while he looked fit and he was a working class hero, he was also a white supremacist. And he played a key role in the White Australia policy, which basically prohibited anyone who wasn't white European from moving to Australia. So, not all good. This was a really significant step though politically, because it showed working classes around the world that they could get into power and potentially make meaningful change for the better. So, mixed bag. Thank you so much for watching. Why not subscribe? And I'll see you tomorrow.